picture with the towel?
Yeah.
Okay.
We went on. We went to Cancun,
Yeah,
you know.
sure. You decorated with yourself in here. Of course. Why not? Back of the room with Jimmy Day.
That's me.
I mean, I'm glad you've set it up so that we all get comfy. We know where we are.
Yeah.
There's things we recognize here, like a picture of Norm and Darth Vader. Makes sense.
You know.
You brought your own eclectic sensibilities to this.
All the shit, my wife was like, you got to get rid of that. I just
Christ,
brought it
you're
in.
married. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
About a year ago. But,
all right. Let's
yeah.
get serious then.
All right.
What happens back here?
You know, we're just hang out, talk. Welcome to Back of the Room, everybody. My guest today is a very funny stand-up comedian. You can check out his 3 hilarious comedy albums titled Touché, How to Be an Audience, and Man in the Suit. It's Ryan Stout, everybody.
Everybody. You should just address the one person who watches
That's
this. Really.
true.
You shouldn't say everybody.
Mom,
I mean,
this
it's
is
such
Ryan Stout.
It's a personal thing.
Yeah.
You know, people are listening with their ear pods in.
Yeah.
They don't want to feel like they're part of a group. They want to feel like we're talking directly to them.
That's
So-
true. I
so
mean,
Frank, thanks for tuning in.
we're trying to build, you know, but Frank's a great listener. We got my mom, so we're building, and you know, you're great at kind of getting the audience on board. I feel like you're like, this is a comedy show. This is what you're getting. This is how you should act. I feel like you're good at that. How did you come about that?
You know, I think a long time ago I realized that when I started doing stand-up comedy and I looked out from the stage at the audience that arrived at the show, I was like, oh, you're not the audience member that I would have been.
Yeah.
Like, I would have been the audience member who looks up who I'm going to see. I'm going to sit and listen to the jokes. I'm going to figure out who you are. And other people just bring their own misperceptions to the show, and they go, yeah, this is how it is in the movies. I get to yell out, right? And you go, no, nobody. There was an announcement before the show telling you not to yell out. Like, how do you guys not know the rules when the rules were just explained to you?
Yeah.
And they really are that separated from, no, this is a show. You're supposed to sit there, watch the show, and relax, respond however you want.
Yeah.
But also, this isn't like you don't get up at the ballet and do little moves at your seat. Sit down and relax.
Yeah.
But the idea that people don't know how to behave was really clear to me really early on. And then the idea that people don't understand that jokes spoken into a microphone are different from the jokes that they see on T-shirts or coffee mugs or television or in advertising. You go, no, this is a whole different space. There's a reason we do this in an adult nightclub, and people have never been asked to think about it. So usually if you explain it to them with some degree of, nuance, nearly everybody goes, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like last night's crowd, I'm like, everybody here agrees that timing is a crucial element of comedy. You all agree with that. But once we get into the show, people are just yelling out, ruining the timing, going, yeah, we don't care what the rules are.
Yeah. Yeah, I checked out your show last night. Very funny. But, yeah, I think that's great to kind of set it up like that because people still don't know. They maybe have been to a show before. They're going to yell out again. They don't care.
Yeah. And
they've never been
it drives
kicked out,
me
I guess.
crazy because now we have the internet where everybody gets to chime in with their opinion on anything. And if you don't know what the rules are and you're reading somebody else's opinion of what stand-up comedy is, it's really easy to agree with an incorrect opinion if you're not also given that other side of like, well, this is how comedy works.
Yeah.
I remember somebody telling me like they really love this one comedian. I just love how he gets up there and he just bam, 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 and he just keeps hitting you. And I was like, oh, that's interesting because I like to pause and then let the audience respond because then it's more of like a conversation.
Yeah.
And that way, I'm not just steamrolling them. They're actually, every show is different because every audience is different. And this person went, well, I guess that's true too. I'm like, oh, so the exact opposite of what you said is also true? Okay, great.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's not to like bag on anybody's personal preference. Certainly you should like whatever you like, but understand like there's a reason why things are different from comic to comic. There's no correct way of doing this. And oddly enough, people will argue that the correct way is to, I don't know, get on stage and just talk about things that help us forget all our problems in life. And then they'll see a comedian, they'll go, I really like this comedian because they get on stage and they address all my problems in life. And you go, you just argued the exact opposite of that. You literally don't know what you want. You don't know what you like until you see it.
Yeah.
And a lot of consumers just don't realize that.
There's no pleasing that kind of person. That's always tough. But
Well,
you know,
and
you
it's-
got to try. But
It's
you're
most
like,
people because they've never been asked to think about comedy in any other regard.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
And by the way, that's not their fault. It's not their fault they've never been asked. I actually like the fact that when you lay it down for people and give people the details, people are very reasonable and they all generally come to the same conclusion, which is the conclusion that most comics come to.
Yeah. And then you got the guy like that was in the front row last night that I went to the bathroom the same time as he did, and he fell back from the urinal and pissed all over the floor. There's always those guys too, you know.
Yeah. They're here to party.
Timing
And
on my
he-
part for that one, but you know.
And what's really interesting is like if you showed him video of how he was responding and then showed like the faces of other people in the room who are not having a good time,
Yeah.
he would realize like, oh, I'm yelling out because that's fun for me at the comedy show, but nobody else likes me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
But he's in the
You know,
front last night,
yeah.
so he doesn't see anybody
yeah,
behind him
exactly.
and just blown out of his mind. Yeah.
Yeah. You did a good job of dealing with him, but he was a tough character.
Yeah, I mean that's I thought that would go away a little bit with the pandemic. I thought that people would kind of recalibrate in certain ways, and they really did for the first like 2 weeks after the pandemic. Every audience was so just kind of like excited to be there
Yeah.
and excited to be in a live show, and they're like, "Hey, let's behave and enjoy the show, and we'll laugh or not laugh, and that'll be that."
Yeah.
But after a while, it really degraded into this sense of like, I'm gonna do whatever I want. And you go, oh, that's not
cool.
that's not freedom in the way that you think of freedom
Uh-huh.
because you're impeding on all these other people's freedom.
Yeah.
And we're also on private property. And anybody who agrees with personal freedom agrees with private property rules. And the person who owns the property gets to make the rules.
Yeah.
And that's their freedom as a property owner. And so, yeah, it's very funny to me that the people who are so amped up about their ability to interrupt also agree I'm not allowed to interrupt.
Yeah, you're good. You can like lay it out. I mean, I don't lay it out that well. I'm just like, hey, you're a dick. You know, the way you say it's way better. So
I've had longer to think about it.
yeah,
To be like, how is this happening?
yeah. Yeah, well, great show, by the way. You know, you've been in town a few days. What do you usually like to do? Do you go out and check things out when you're in a certain city, or do you kind of just chill in the hotel?
You know, it depends on where I am and who else is on the show. And this particular trip through St. Louis, I've had other work to do. I mean, I help write for various other comics and other YouTube channels and things like that. So I had a script to work on. So I kind of went back to the hotel and did that a little bit and then fired that off, I would say this morning around 4 a.m. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're working then.
Well,
Yeah.
it just happens to be that way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I mean, different cities, different things like that. Sometimes comics will come in and like, oh, what should I do? And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, you know, I like St. Louis, but it's not like it's a mecca for tourism or anything. I'm like, we got some good barbecue and
Right. Well, it used to be that I would be up all night. I'd party with the wait staff, and then we
Mhm.
would go out and get, pizza at 2 a.m. And then for the last couple of years, nothing's open past 10 o'clock,
yeah.
which is baffling because I've always been like a nighttime person.
Mm-hmm.
My wife is a very nighttime oriented person. She used to tour manage musicians, so she like understands that touring life and that nightlife, and we really connected on that. And then, it just so happens that now we're a little bit older, and we don't necessarily need a nightlife, but we're also kind of like we should be able to have the
Yeah.
choice.
If you want to get something to eat at 11, it should be there,
I mean,
you would think.
you can't get a pizza delivered at midnight on a
Yeah.
Friday. What is going on? And it's just, I'm not sure if we were in a place as a country that was like hyper capitalism, where it was like, hey, if you want to make money, you got to be open.
Yeah.
So 3 a.m. pizza, we got to make it available. And then all of a sudden, every corporation realized like we can actually not be open at 3, and we can actually save money, and we could just be open reasonable hours.
Yeah. That's more likely probably, but it still kind of sucks.
Yeah.
I miss it too.
Yeah. It's no longer the idea of let's give people the option. It's just straight up, mm, what's the money look like?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that happens, You're a very sharp dressed man on stage, like the suit look,
Thank you. Yeah, yeah.
I tried to,
You
dress
tried
up,
to, yeah. You didn't know
just
what I'd be wearing to the podcast. Yeah.
I wore my best
daytime.
shirt,
Uh-huh.
so I just didn't, know what you're going to be wearing,
It
but
does make it difficult because there are a lot of comedians that like sell T-shirts after the show, and that's pretty lucrative for a lot of comics. I know there are comics that buy a new car every year based on their T-shirt money.
Yeah.
And I've never sold T-shirts because it looks so strange for me to sit there in a suit and tie to be like, here, let me sell you animals a T-shirt. I know your speed. Here, wear this thing with the goofy joke on it.
Yeah, it makes sense. But when did the suit start? When did you start wearing it? Was it always suit, or did you kind of graduate to the suit at some point?
Yeah, I think it was around 2004. I was a few years into comedy, and I just wanted to kind of set a tone for what was going to be happening on stage. I always really liked the fact that like George Lopez wears a suit, so when he does like a big act out, it seems bigger. It seems like a choice.
Yeah.
And when other people wear a suit and tie, you go, oh, okay, well that person's going to stand and talk. I'm prepared for that now.
Yeah.
I think I also kind of gravitated to the idea that, unlike a lot of comics, I enjoy listening. I don't need to talk the whole time. And so when I'm talking to somebody, I actually enjoy letting them have their say and then finding the funny from them. And that's kind of a talk show host vibe. And so I was kind of positioning myself to be that. And I think a lot of people, they see a comic, suit and tie, and they think, okay, talk show, great. And that was a job that I could do. And I was kind of like, it was a marketing thing a little bit. I think there was also a little bit of obsessive compulsive disorder in there, a little bit of, I don't know, autism. I was like, oh, I could just wear a uniform on stage. That way I don't have to think about what I'm going to wear. I've never been like a fashion forward person. I don't know what sneakers are hip. I don't know what brand of jeans people are wearing. I don't know the cut. I don't know. I can't name any hip magazines to like look at for men's fashion. And so I was like, suit and tie is kind of timeless and classic. I could just wear that forever.
Yeah. It's working, man. It looks good.
It's a little different now though, because the suit took a turn as far as CEOs used to wear suits, and now CEOs wear jeans and a hoodie. And when somebody puts a suit and tie on, everybody goes, ooh, what's wrong? Are you testifying in front of Congress? What's going on? Did you get subpoenaed? Is that why you're in the suit and tie? Like, it's no longer a power move. Now it's, oh, you're in trouble. But at a comedy club, it still seems like, oh, clearly you're in charge of something.
Yeah, you're the guy tonight. Like, nobody else is wearing a suit in a comedy club.
Right.
So, yeah. It's a good look, though, man. You mentioned, doing some hosting, game shows, that kind of stuff. And I saw you were on Conan as well. What's Conan like, and how was that experience for you?
Conan was very nice guy. It was really fun to be able to do his show in particular. Like, I really wanted to do Conan on NBC. I wanted to do Late Night with Conan O'Brien. And then I was like, okay, well, hopefully I could just do the Tonight Show with Conan O'Brien. And then that went away, and I thought that was a travesty.
Yeah.
And then when he announced that he was going to return to TV and he was going to be on TBS, I was like, okay, well, it's unfortunately, it's not, network TV. It's cable. Yeah. But it's still Conan. Yeah. And the set's gorgeous, and, it's just an environment and like a fan base that I wanted to connect with. It's very interesting, though, because one of the best pieces of advice I received was from the booker, J.P. Buck. And he said, Ryan, come on. These people aren't here to see stand-up. They're here to see Conan. And that one sentence, like, triggers things in your head. And you go, oh, yeah. They don't know who the third guest is. Yeah. Some of these people have been holding tickets for months to go see Conan. The third guest could be a band, could be a ventriloquist, could be anybody. They don't know what I'm going to do when I come out from behind the curtain. So I immediately went into a mindset of like, oh, I have to really go out and like not be as pretentious about, hey, you guys are here to see stand up, so here's what the rules are. I have to go out and treat it like television.
Mm-hmm.
So I came out from behind the curtain and smiled. And Bill Hicks always had a thing about you should never ask the audience how they're doing. You should tell them how they're doing. And the truth is, yeah, in a nightclub, but on a television set
Yeah.
where the audience doesn't know who you are, like a very polite greeting
Uh-huh.
when they don't know they're going to see stand up, kind of crucial.
Yeah.
So I start that set by going, "How are you?" And then they applaud. And automatically you're in a rhythm of like, I talk, you respond. And so that was like a definitive choice. And you could just tell my energy coming out from behind that curtain, waving at the band. Like you realize, oh, this is just a different game.
Mm-hmm.
And so you try to adjust to that environment. Like you would never do stand up at a club the same way you would do a corporate event. You tweak some things,
Yeah.
make some choices. We know you get on stage in a room that has really high ceilings. You might make some choices. You get on stage in a room that seats 300, but instead there are 25 people and they're not even seated in a group. They're scattered around the room. You might not even get on stage. You might just walk around, not using the mic, not getting on stage, just yelling.
Yeah.
Just to get people's attention to be like, oh yeah, live show. And so in every circumstance, we figure out how to make it work, but we never think of TV as, oh, it's a different game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Conan's always been my guy, but that's got to be, a lot of pressure and a lot of prep. Like, how much time did you get, like, before, like asked you to do it between, like, till you were on the show?
I think I lucked out just because once I had a tape, a piece of video that showed the jokes that I wanted to do,
Mm-hmm.
and we sent that in, and then JP Buck had known me probably for, I don't know, 8 years at that point, and he had moved around to different jobs as well, booking stand-up. And when he landed at Conan, I sent him my video, and he was like, yeah, no, this is funny, but what about these jokes? And he mentioned jokes that he really liked. And so I was like, yeah, I could do those. And then I just put those on tape. And we started going through a process of, he has to take certain things to legal.
Uh-huh.
And so lawyers have to look at it to make sure you're not going to say something that upsets the advertisers. You're not going to say something that upsets the network. There's a lot of different voices involved. And so there was a joke that they didn't necessarily like me mentioning, like Rwandan genocide. They didn't like me referencing it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, but you guys know I've already done that joke on television. You guys asked me to do this joke, and it's got Rwandan genocide in the other version that's on TV. So, I'll cut it, but at this point it seems needless.
Yeah.
And there was another thing. They were like, we don't like this ugly, this part seems kind of gross. And I was like, it is gross, but I'm the victim in that joke. And since I'm not the victim in all these other jokes, it kind of balances it out. And they went, all right, let's do it. And so you kind of navigate this thing.
Yeah.
And it's weird because people talk about stand-up comedy and censorship and whatever else. And every comic knows, like, yeah, but again, this isn't stand-up, this is television.
Mm-hmm.
So we all know that we're going to negotiate and we're going to essentially self-censor in agreement with what we can get on the air because we benefit from doing the show.
Yeah.
And everybody did that. Carlin wasn't dropping F-bombs when he would do late night TV.
Yeah.
And Lenny Bruce wasn't getting on Merv and like going over the line and pressing the censors and getting, ripped off the air. Everybody who's a stand-up comic knows, yes, stand-up comedy, no censorship, but then television, different beast.
Yeah.
And so we just play the game.
Yeah. Well, I saw the set, man. You did great. Sure it was a different kind of, different thing, but, you got to play the game and play ball. Sometimes.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with all the jokes that I got to tell on there.
Yeah,
so
they were all, I noticed it was around the time, your first album was kind of coming out, I think, and then some of those were listen on there. I listened to Touche the other day. Very funny.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, man. I know we don't know each other that great. I got a little segment here just to get to know you a little better.
Okay.
It's called That's My Favorite.
All right, let's do that.
I'm just going to throw some stuff
just
out.
a little preference game. Okay.
Yeah, just see what you like. Favorite sport?
Probably basketball.
Okay.
I think I was just at an age when, Michael Jordan just dominated the what was on television. And my older brother went to, he played college basketball for Caltech, which is not a great basketball team.
But still, college basketball.
He went to Caltech because he was like, I could probably play basketball there. The harder part about Caltech is being smart enough to get in.
Yeah.
And then once you do, you go, oh, well, I can play with these nerds.
Too. Yeah, that's my favorite too. Like, since we didn't have a team here, I just kind of latched on to Bowles and Jordan.
Yeah,
I was a kid, and I was like, he's awesome. So
I grew up in El Paso, Texas, so there wasn't a sports team nearby. It's 11 hours from Denver. You're 9 hours from San Antonio. You're 8 hours to Phoenix. And those are where the major sports teams would have been.
Yeah.
And so you kind of go, well, I'm in the middle of nowhere here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was born in Cleveland, but being a Browns fan is very difficult wherever you might be. And, they got moved to Baltimore at one point, and the Cavs were never
until
really
LeBron,
in it until LeBron.
Yeah.
And then, the Cleveland Guardians, formerly known as the Indians, in the late 90s, it was very exciting when they won the pennant, but never took home the championship. And you just kind of go, well, not only am I in El Paso, Texas, far, far away from Cleveland, but they're not even winning the championships anyway. So the place of my birth isn't even playing into this.
Yeah. Might as well just root for Jordan.
I can watch him play the game.
Yeah. Favorite band or musician?
I was thinking about this the other day, that I really, no matter what phase of my life I'm in, I always end up gravitating back to Led Zeppelin in some form or another. Don't know why.
They're great.
They're great. And I absolutely know that sometimes I'm like, yeah, they're great. I'm not in the mood, though. Them and, related, Cream. There were a lot of bands, like rock from the mid-'60s that I really connected with for whatever reason. But as far as something more modern, I'm a real sucker for a cover song.
Okay.
There's something about comedy that, if you like stand-up comedy, if you like jokes, and you like that idea that you can compare two things that don't seem similar, you listen to a band like, I don't know, Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, and they do a punk version of, John Denver, and you go, oh, I wouldn't have imagined those two fitting together, but I like it. And so it always makes me giggle anytime there's a cover song, and I just hear somebody's new take on something that is familiar.
Yeah, I think that is probably why people like covers, because you wouldn't want a cover that just sounded exactly like the old one.
No, it's karaoke.
What's the point of that?
Right.
Yeah.
But if somebody brings something absolutely new to it, and you go, okay.
Yeah.
Smashing Pumpkins, you could do Landslide. I'm into that. Great. I also really got into, there's certain people that do mashups. A mashup is the same thing.
Yeah.
So, when Girl Talk came out, and I know there are a lot of DJs that don't like Girl Talk because people that are really into the art of, spinning records, they like to get their hands involved, versus Girl Talk is more of a guy that uses a computer and clips song pieces together and lines them up, and it's not as much of, live and in the moment spinning records. But at the same time, I'm like, but he also has a billion options, so he can layer.
Yeah. I think my wife still has a CD with that on it in her car.
Yeah.
And they do just kind of know what goes together somehow, like that.
Yeah, and I think part of it might be software, just understanding beats per minute and just kind of lining things up, or maybe slowing things down just a hair that we can't pick up on. But when you can, put some hip hop and then Jackson 5 underneath that, and then some sort of Led Zeppelin riff under that, and you go, oh, all this stuff fits together. This is kind of a fun time.
You like Greta Van Fleet?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw him in concert like 2 months ago. Pretty good.
Good.
I mean, it's kind of Led Zeppelin. I mean, basically a new Led Zeppelin, but
Sure.
pretty good.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Well, and my wife worked in music for, such a long time, and she ended up working with so many different artists, from like very young pop stars to, alt rock people to, teenage heartthrobs from 20 years ago. And you realize, like, oh, no matter what happens, you have to put on a show.
Yeah.
And you realize how different everybody's fan base is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good answer, though, on that one. I'll give you another one here.
Good answer. Come on now, everybody. I'm winning.
Who's the host now, favorite SNL cast member of all time?
It's funny. My mind flashes to Chris Rock saying, "Who's funnier than Will Ferrell?"
Yeah.
I just remember him asking that question. I was like, yeah, you're right. Who is funnier than Will Ferrell? Will Ferrell's always just been so consistently him.
Yeah.
And there was that story recently about him doing the movie Elf and James Caan.
I heard that, yeah.
Not liking him at all.
Yeah, he didn't get that he was fucking with him.
And then seeing the film and going, oh, he's great.
Yeah.
But genuinely during the filming being like, this guy's obnoxious.
Yeah.
Definitely Will Ferrell always made me laugh, but Bill Hader kills it.
Yeah.
I've even Kristen Wiig has made me laugh really consistently, and Kate. Why can't I remember her name? Yeah, Kate McKinnon. Jesus.
Very good. Yeah.
Who's gonna deny Kate McKinnon her place on the Comedy Mountain? Hilarious, top to bottom, always, and has made so many people just break on camera.
Yeah.
And it's really funny. Like when there was that remake of Ghostbusters with an all-female cast, and you look at that cast and you go, really, Kate McKinnon and Melissa McCarthy and Leslie Jones, like all of those women are hilarious.
Yeah.
Hilarious. I don't know what the movie is. I haven't seen it yet. It hasn't come out. But then you had this huge campaign against it. Yeah. Simply because it was like, you're taking over our childhood. And I'm like, hey, why don't you just think of it as a mashup? Yeah. It's just it's a Ghostbusters. The old ones are still there. It's a cover. Yeah. And we're going to see how these new comedic icons bring a new thing to it. Yeah. It's just a new flavor, everybody. Enjoy it. It's not like they went out and got random women to play the role. They got hilarious, talented women. Why don't you just see what it is before we judge it? Yeah. Give him a shot. Favorite Keanu Reeves movie? I would probably go The Matrix. Just more in that sci-fi vein, as far as it seemed intellectual, despite the fact that it was an action film. Yeah. Whereas John Wick, I'm like, this is very exciting, but this is like a vengeance movie. I like those movies, but he is just kind of killing like 300 guys per movie. Yeah. And it's good.
All right, we're back. Sitting in the back of the room with Ryan Stout. Got some comedy questions for you. We already touched on a lot of comedy stuff. Going to get into it a little more here.
Okay.
I kind of got a little, I saw your rundown on the website and stuff, some of the stuff you've done, but when did you kind of get started, or where did you start? When and where, I guess.
I think I technically started in San Francisco in 2001.
Okay.
I moved to the Bay Area specifically to do stand-up because I wanted to develop in a place that wasn't New York or LA. I wanted to develop kind of under the radar, and that worked out. I was there for 5 years, and then I won the Boston Comedy Festival, and then my phone started ringing, and
Nice.
The plan was always to move from San Francisco to New York, but LA just started calling, and it was one of those things where you realize that being young in show business and having people in your corner is a bigger asset than being, really skilled in New York and being older.
Mm-hmm.
The entertainment business and the home audience really doesn't care about, technical talent and ability. It's that old thing where people know what they like and they like what they know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that makes sense. And then, from LA, I know you started doing some hosting stuff and all that kind of stuff. And then when you first were doing comedy, I guess in San Francisco, do you remember, your first set or like I mean, did you probably didn't start your first set in San Francisco, as you said you moved there, or
So,
did
yeah,
your
my very first time on stage, it was on my 17th birthday.
Oh,
It was
okay.
at a talent show in high school, and I think I only had like a minute and a half on stage, and
Okay.
so I just kind of I don't even remember. I did the stupid thing where I was like, "Oh, I'll just get up there and then it'll come to me," and it worked out fine. But I don't. I mean, it's a blur.
Yeah.
A lot of people they have that first time on stage where they don't remember anything that happened.
Uh-huh.
And so it wasn't until I moved to San Francisco where I got a little advice on like, oh yeah, when you watch late night television and you see a comedian do 5 minutes, they're not telling one story.
Mhm.
They're doing a series of jokes.
Yeah.
It's called a set for a reason. It's a set of jokes. There's a list of jokes. And so that just one tiny revelation was it kind of clued me to the idea of, oh, okay. And then I started writing more in that vein. But I also did a few open mics before moving to San Francisco and like coffee houses and things where I was telling like a long story. And again, I could figure out how to get laughs along the way.
Mhm.
But it's weird. People often talk about how whatever your instincts are when you start stand up, you spend your time kind of getting back to that. And I do have longer story type things that I do on stage, but I really did develop that skill of, well, I'll just have this clear cut list of jokes that I can either, pick and choose or eliminate as we go. That way, if you're talking about topic X and people aren't on board with that and you do two jokes and they're still not on board, you go, well, I'm not going to do the other three jokes. I'm going to
Uh-huh.
segue into this other thing.
Yeah, well, you got very good jokes, man. You're a great writer. And has that changed all your writing process, or I mean, have you always kind of been a joke guy at the core, I guess?
I think it's just a skill and it's just a habit that you know, work on over time.
Mhm.
And even though I do spend less time now sitting and writing, I used to diligently sit and write. But because I've spent 20 years, anytime I'm in public and like an idea hits me, like immediately writing that down to like review later, and getting over the idea that so many people they're like, oh, I'll remember that.
No, you
And
won't.
early on, I
Yeah.
went, nope, you forgot all those things.
Yeah.
So now you diligently write down everything.
Yeah.
And so even during times in my life where I feel like I haven't been writing, I go into my notes and I go, oh, I've got all these different jokes to tell
Yeah.
because just habitually they've been aggregated over time.
Yeah. I kind of do the same thing. I'll take a note on my phone and then kind of move it to the laptop and try to work on it a little bit. But I kind of do short jokes, and it's tough doing that because, I'll do an open mic. It's 4 minutes. I'm like, oh, great. I got a new 30 seconds. That's, for they could do in a longer set. But,
Yeah.
Everybody's got their own process and thing, but it's just,
Yeah, and
yeah.
it's a little unfair in stand up because, there are authors who they take 20 years to write their first novel,
Mhm.
and that's okay because it's a huge success. And there are painters who people don't discover until after they're dead, and that's not a problem. They live in infamy.
Yeah.
But stand up, you're only given the time that you're alive
Yeah.
to not only tell the jokes but get them, on record somehow in front
Mhm.
of an audience. And then whatever you get, that's all you get. So if you never reach a level of fame where you're doing sold out shows, you don't have recordings in front of sold out shows.
Mhm.
And you go, okay, well, that's kind of unfair.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter if my jokes are great or if they're looked upon as great later. They don't get a second chance.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough, man. Like, it's a cruel mistress comedy, but it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's the other element
it's
of me like trying to key the audience into like what's going on
yeah.
because they've never been asked to think about, oh, really, you want to play guitar? Great. Go get a guitar go sit in your room and learn how to play it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you want to learn how to do stand-up, okay, well, now you have to go compete for stage time against other comedians who have already been doing it.
Yeah.
And, if somebody's new at stand-up and they want to get on stage, well, great, you're competing with me, and I've been around for 22 years, and I've got a lot of TV credits.
Yeah.
But we're competing for the same stage time.
Exactly.
So what kind of booker is going to put you on stage over me, and yet you're going to say, well, I want to, how do I get to try? I don't know. Good luck. But that's how I came up.
Yeah.
That's how everybody came up.
Yeah.
You have to compete for stage time, and if you're new, it isn't fair. But if you want to learn to paint, you want to learn to play guitar, go do it.
Yeah.
It's the only type of creativity where it's like there's this element involved where it's like you're not even allowed to really do it until you can prove that you can do it. And you go, how do I prove that I could do it if you won't
Yeah.
let me do it? What is
Yeah.
this catch-22?
That's very true. And, comedy's so hard, man, just because you got a crowd there. They have to audibly laugh. If you're at a concert, they can play a classic song. Everybody doesn't have to dance or sing along, but they're going to like it.
Right.
And you can keep playing that song until the day you die.
They can bob their heads up and down. They can look at their phone. They can even stop mid-song and talk to their friend
Yeah.
and then come back to the song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Music's very hard too, but it's like you do the same joke 6 months from now, somebody's like, I fucking heard that one already.
Absolutely. I mean, music's very, very hard, but the crowd receives it passively,
Uh-huh.
whereas comedy requires them to receive it actively
Yeah.
and then requires them to give judgment when they don't have any type of background in how to give judgment.
Yeah.
And so they just base their feelings on whatever. And then somehow, whatever decision they make, that's our fault.
Yeah.
So some critic out there is like, yeah, but the audience shouldn't have laughed. And I'm like, well, go tell them that.
Yeah.
Don't tell me.
Uh-huh.
Go fight with them. But you're cowards and you won't do it. It's one of those things. You've got these comedy critics who want to say, like, the audience decides. And then as soon as the audience decides something that the critic doesn't like, the critic goes, no, they don't count.
Yeah.
And you kind of go, okay, well, you know what I've never seen in 20 plus years of comedy? Never seen a heckler stand up, turn around 180 degrees and start yelling at the crowd. Why? Because that would take courage.
Yeah.
But people think it's a courageous act for the heckler to engage with the comedian. It's not. You're literally doing the most cowardly thing.
Yeah.
Because you think of it as a one-on-one situation where it's like, no. It's you versus 300. You turn around now.
Yeah.
You tell them they're wrong. And everybody doesn't want to do it.
They don't seem to understand that. Or even if, okay, everyone laughed at that joke. I personally don't like it. So I'm going to say something like, you're outnumbered. So shut the fuck up.
I think we've treated humor as a culture as this, this, I don't know, intelligence test. And so we like to do this thing where it's like, oh, you didn't laugh because you don't get it. And that's not necessarily always true because we have personal preference.
Yeah.
I see people doing wordplay on stage and I go, that's really good wordplay. I don't particularly get tickled by wordplay, but I could see why that's good.
Yeah.
I could see how well crafted that is. I could see how sharp it is. So I'm not going to laugh, but I don't think it's bad.
Yeah.
You look at paintings of bowls of fruit and that might not blow your hair back, but other people go, no, but it's really exquisite. And
Yeah.
you go, all right, I get it. But once you've put people into this pressure situation where if they don't laugh, there's something wrong with them, which we do a lot as a culture. I mean, you've just ignited conflict.
Yeah.
And then we get into this situation where we go, all right, well, is stand-up comedy a thermometer or is it a what am I thinking?
Like a scale of some kind of I guess right and wrong or whatever, I know what you're trying to say, but yeah.
I mean, do comedians set the temperature or do we take the temperature?
Yeah.
Are we gauging how the audience feels or are we causing the audience to feel a certain way? And people don't like to think that Richard Pryor, they like to say, oh, he changed the culture. And you go, yeah, but it would take just as much skill to make the argument that the culture was changing and he rode the wave.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't want to have that debate. You'd rather have the easy, just, oh no, he changed the culture and then move on with your life. So I like to think of stand-up comedy as like, hey, if the audience decides, we know they just decide. And I could be completely right and have a really great joke. And other comics who write jokes and know comedy go, that's a really great joke. And then we go, yeah, but the audience doesn't like it. So that's the game.
Yeah.
Like it or hate it, that's the game. And every comic goes, yeah, I dropped that great joke because the audience didn't like it. But critics think, no, you should drop good jokes that the audience does like out of some sort of moral sense. And you go, no, I'm proving that this is where the culture is right now.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it, man. It's always changing, but that's a good outlook on it for sure. Any favorite, like a favorite comedian of all time, or like top 2, 3 that you've had or currently have?
You know, I've always like going back to that Led Zeppelin thing. You know how you have people that you love and you go, I'm just not in the mood.
Yeah.
You know, my entire life loved Mark Maron. Like from the time I was a young kid. And by the way, it's a little weird to think that I grew up in El Paso, Texas, and Mark spent so much time in Albuquerque, which are so close to each other. We're desert people.
Yeah.
And you think about like when Mark Maron's birthday is, if you believe in like astrology, I think his birthday's 3 days before mine. And so there's this Mark Maron element that I've always gravitated toward, and a level of like introspection that I always appreciated. And you know, sometimes Mark will be performing at like the Improv down the street from me, and he'll be like, Mark Maron, Thursday night. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go over there on Thursday. I'm going to see Mark. And then it's Tuesday. I'm like, I'm going to go over there on Thursday and see Mark. And then Thursday rolls around. I'm like, I can't get introspective today. I am just not in the mood for whatever that's going to be. And I'm so lucky that over the years I've gotten to know Mark a little bit, and I've gotten to hang out with him. And they say don't meet your heroes, and I don't necessarily think that's a true thing, but at the same time, you kind of have that conflict of like, I like Mark on this personal level, and I like him on this artistic level, and I'm also not in the mood to watch him do his art tonight.
Yeah.
And so it becomes this this weird way to navigate.
Yeah, it's not a good comparison, but it just happened. So, like Thursday, my brother was like, "Oh, I got 2 free tickets to see Limp Bizkit." I was like, "Oh, well, I loved them when I was 12."
Right.
And then, you know, it was Wednesday and it like rained on Tuesday. I was like, you know, the lawn's probably going to be pretty swampy. I don't know if we should go. And then Thursday morning rolled around. And you're like, I don't know, man. Like, I gotta.
Right.
There's gonna be traffic.
Uh-huh.
And then we didn't go.
Sure.
Just like.
You know, Greg Behrendt released his album Uncool. I think in 1999 was the first. He did a re-release later, that he re-recorded at like the San Jose Improv as a special. But the original album, recorded at the Laugh Stop in Houston, was just one of my favorite albums because at the time he was really crafting it to be like a one-man show. But you know, he really dives into that idea of being a guy who aged out of going to the rock concert.
Yeah.
He was like, no, I want an 8 p.m. show, no opening band, and this is Kashmir, back up. And you know, he starts the show being like, tonight I'm going to talk to you about being uncool, and by the time I'm finished talking, you'll know why I'm qualified. But yeah, that idea that you also don't want to be the type of person who likes the same things for the same reasons you did 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You want to be a person who's like, oh yeah, that was very important to me, and then I changed and I had different interests, and now I'm just more interested in this other stuff.
Yeah.
So Mark Maron I love, but I love listening to Kyle Kinane. I love tuning in and seeing just anybody new who's doing things. I like people for different reasons. I love to watch Tim Dillon get on stage and just rant about whatever he's feeling. I feel like the stuff that he kind of comes up with off the cuff, I'm like, man, there's a level of brilliance there that I am just...
Yeah.
He grew up in a different information environment than I grew up in. There are people like, you know, I even like Gerard Carmichael just because I don't know, I can't quite understand how he can get away with such a slower cadence and keep people on board.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll plod along, and then he'll find something and really get that big laugh. And I'm like, man, I don't know if that's the audience being patient or if that's Gerard being patient.
Yeah.
But watching people execute over time, you just learn to really appreciate that nuance of like, it doesn't matter if I love or hate another comedian's, choice of topic. It's again bowls of fruit.
Yeah.
You're no longer looking at bowls of fruit. You're looking at how do colors mix and blend?
Mm-hmm.
How is this framed? Are we looking at it from the side? Are we looking down on it, bird's eye view? What's the depth in the thing? Is it light versus shadow? Are we casting shadows with the fruit? Like, how are we creating this image? And you start to realize, like, oh, all these comics do all these different things that they do so beautifully well. And the great thing about comics is some of them will be like, yeah, I'm not a good actor. Comics will tell you what they're not good at because they've figured out what they're not good at.
Yeah, that's true, man. You can watch a bunch of different people, and even if you don't like them, you can say, oh, well, that was pretty good there, or the way they did that was pretty interesting. But yeah, it's nobody does it the same way.
That's the level of criticism in our culture that is missing.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of people willing to say, let me tell you why this is bad. And it just makes me giggle because I'm like, yeah, but you have no qualifications to talk about what makes something good.
Exactly.
You can't tell me. I have a friend, she's a painter, and so she can show us a painting and tell us all sorts of things about it, what makes it incredible. And then I could ask, do you like it? And she could go, no, if I never saw it again, it would be too soon. Are you kidding? But having the ability to pick out what's good is what would make you a good critic.
Yeah.
And instead, we're flooded with this criticism of, oh, no, I know why this is bad. And you go, ugh, well, you're a terrible downer then.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man. Any good comedy advice you got, like when you're first starting out, or like something you held on to?
Yeah, I think I was fortunate to work with Dana Gould when I was 22, and I had just won the Boston Comedy Festival. I was the house MC at Cobb's Comedy Club, and I was living at this house in San Francisco on 21st and Geary, and Dana Gould lived in that same place when he was my age, and he was the house MC at Cobb's.
Wow.
And he had just won the Boston Comedy Festival, and Dana Gould was like, look at that. You're exactly where I was when I was 22. I have bad news. It's not going to work out for you. And he, of course, was making the joke bagging on himself, being like, yeah, we have these little things in common, and unfortunately, you're not going to be a famous person. And so it was a very funny thing. But he told me this one piece of advice that I think he received from somebody, which is the audience only wants two things. They want to know that you like them, and they want to know that they're getting a show. So you don't have to give each of those at 100%. If the audience thinks that, you only like them 2%, but the other 98% they're getting a show, they'll allow for that in their minds. The Don Rickles thing. Don is up there like bagging on people, but everybody understands, no, but this is a show, and I have this feeling that he likes me.
Yeah.
So we're gonna even it out. But if you get up there and the audience feels like you don't like them, it doesn't matter how big of a show you're giving. And if you're not really giving a show, if you're just up there like ranting and kicking your feet and like looking down and not making eye contact and bad-mouthing the crowd, those people are gone.
Yeah.
They're like, this is horrendous.
Yeah, that's good advice, man. I didn't, I mean, those are both obviously true, but putting it together like that is, I've never quite heard it that way.
Yeah, it really did change the way that I viewed, that I asked myself the question, like, do these people think that I like them? Because I would hope they do.
Yeah.
I technically did all of this work for them, but at the same time, if they're doing something wrong, I should be allowed to yell at them.
Yeah, exactly.
And so how do I berate them in a way where they know that it's okay?
Yeah. It's a fine line, but you do it well, man.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah.
Got another dumb segment for you.
Okay. Dumb segments.
Maybe
Let's rename the podcast to Dumb Segments.
It's called 3 Wishes. So you kind of just explain 3 wishes you have that aren't like, just unlimited money forever, immortality. They're more like minor niceties that you'd like to have.
Minor niceties.
Yeah. So you
Huh.
don't. It's not like a genie that gives you anything. He's more a little specific.
Okay.
So you can't go too far. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
I'd like the ability just to turn on and off lights with my mind.
Huh. Okay. So we're trying to think small here.
You know, middle of the road. You could go bigger than that. It's
You gave yourself telekinesis, but it's just linked to electricity.
Yeah, just that though. That's all I could do.
Yeah. So if we have like some sort of
I can't change the channels on
Yeah,
TV or anything like that.
if there's an atomic bomb and an EMP goes off and we lose electricity, you're like, well, that ability's gone.
Yeah.
We don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
I would I really wish I had. My mind is going straight to.
I told you this was dumb.
My mind goes
So-
straight to like therapy and all sorts of things that I've worked out with a therapist to be like, oh yeah, I should get better at that. That's I wish I could forgive my father. That would be a good one. I really wish.
I'll allow it.
I think there's an element of me where I wish I could kind of just fall into a relaxed state whenever I wanted. Because that would help me sleep. It would help me focus. It would help. And I even try to like meditate, but it doesn't always hit as hard as I'd like.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if you grow a tolerance to meditation, but I like the idea that people say that they can manifest the life that they want, and I guess that's what you're talking about with wishes. Like, what would you manifest?
Now that'd be great. I mean, you could just shut it off and then probably sleep better because your mind's not racing. There's some different applications there for sure.
Yeah, whatever's stressing me out or whatever, I'm projecting onto the future of the economy or politics or whatever I'm stressing about.
Yeah.
I could just go, well, it's not happening right now. Right now we're fine.
Yeah.
So why don't you just relax? Yeah, I wish I could do that. That's definitely one.
Okay. I'll throw one at you.
Okay.
Never having to mow the yard again.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I could hire somebody, I guess.
You're really fighting this greenery issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't like life growing out of your control. Lunatic.
It's,
you should see a therapist.
I probably should.
My
wife the other day just said, "Man, you really like mowing the yard."
and you're
It's like, no, I don't.
I hate mowing the
I kind
yard.
of have to.
It's the summertime. I have to do it every 3 days.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the HOA is going to knock on our door. You don't have an HOA. I can see the tuxedo
Yeah, no
t-shirt.
HOA,
Yeah.
but I've got some nosy neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I could predict when machines were going to break down,
Okay.
because then I wouldn't have that frustration of like, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I need it to work right now and it doesn't. But if I could predict like, oh, I'm not going to use that machine 2 days from now because it's going to break, that would save me a lot of frustration.
Yeah.
Because I almost have had a habit of taking it personally of like, Google doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? Google? You're one of the biggest companies in the world. I need to use you right now. And somehow I'm just getting, spinning windmills. Are you kidding me? How is this possible? How is it possible that the biggest company shuts down right when I need it? Hiccup right now.
Yeah. It's tough. That would help people out with that Microsoft whatever thing that shut all the planes down.
Yeah.
You could have predicted that.
Well, even like driving to the airport, if you knew you were going to get a flat tire, or if you knew that the
Yeah.
engine was going to stop, you'd be like, oh, well, I just won't take my car this
Yeah.
time. I'll Uber, and then I'll wait till the car breaks down when I'm back home. I'll break down right in front of the mechanic. How about that?
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. My last one is just never having to use the bathroom again.
Oh, you don't want to eliminate waste.
No, it's just,
You want it to all evaporate.
however it works, but I just, it takes so much time. It's, there's the discomfort.
But it's the greatest excuse. I have to go. I have to use the restroom. Excuse me.
Yeah, I guess.
And everybody relates to it, and they go, "Oh, well, we have to let him go."
Yeah.
Please.
Well,
go,
you
go,
could
go.
still say that though, but then you really could just do something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why. It's just, I think I have IBS now or something, because I feel like maybe once a week now, it's a very close call for me.
Where you're rushing.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, if that were the case, I would want to stop that as well.
Yeah, I could probably get some medicine, but I haven't looked into it. But I'm
Yeah,
just
you
gonna
should-
wish it away for now.
Yeah. Let's change your diet, maybe.
Yeah,
Let's,
probably.
yeah. Wishing away the IBS versus wishing away. I just don't want to use the bathroom at
Yeah.
all.
It's it's dump game. I told you, but
I wish I could just. I would like to wish for my wife's happiness.
okay.
And even though she, you know, she wouldn't, that has nothing to do with me or how I treat her or anything like that. It's more of the other stuff in the world,
Yeah.
you know, like getting fired from a job where you worked really hard and then your boss comes in and goes, yeah, we're doing layoffs. Sorry. And I'm like, oh, she worked really hard for you.
Yeah.
And gave you a lot of loyalty. And now you have screwed her over. I wish I could eliminate those things from her life that have nothing to do with me,
Yeah.
just to give her that wish.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's 3 wishes, everybody. We're gonna wrap things up here.
Now that I'm thinking about it, 3 wishes is kind of a good. If you would have given me that one in advance, that could have been the whole podcast.
Yeah, I
We could
should
do a
have gave
whole
it to
3
you in
wishes
advance.
podcast,
Yeah.
because especially with the rule of like, let's put a limit on it. Let's make it a little smaller.
Yeah. You needed to know some more things probably than just throwing it on you.
But it's a good talking point.
Yeah.
At first, I was like, "You're right. This is a stupid segment." Now I'm like, "This is really a deep segment. I love this."
yeah. That segment was 3 wishes.
We did it.
Maybe we'll do it again.
it
Maybe
was
not.
so much better than I anticipated.
Only slightly dumb, but you did great. You had better wishes than I did. But what are you gonna do? We're gonna wrap things up here. Where can people find you? Your social media, that kind of stuff.
Since social media started when I was so new into stand-up,
Mm-hmm.
like I had only been doing stand-up for. YouTube came out in 2005, which meant I had been doing stand-up for 4 years before YouTube, and like Friendster was kind of a thing, and MySpace kind of took off, and I had a level of popularity on MySpace, and I was on like television, and people are finding me on MySpace, and then MySpace went away, people gravitated over to Facebook, and then you were only allowed to have like 5,000 friends on Facebook at the time.
Mhm.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And I maxed out on that, and then had to start like a page, and then all of a sudden the day came where they're like, oh, well, you can merge these, and then I merged them, and then the day came where like, well, you can't just have a page, you have to have a personal profile too. So then I've got the page and the personal profile, and then eventually the day came, they're like, well, this is an outdated personal profile type, so we have to take this down. And so because there's been all of this jumping, like I remember when like Periscope started,
Yeah.
I immediately went, I'm not doing that. Just not doing it.
Yeah.
I will not do Vine, not doing it. And Twitter, I felt like Twitter was a very comic-friendly environment.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was doing that for a while, and then I just felt like it was not, it was weird to put out a joke and not get anything with it from
Yeah.
10,000 people. Nobody gives it, you get 14 likes. But then I go on stage in front of 17,000 people in an arena, and I tell the same joke with the same words, and boom, there's an explosion of laughter. I'm like, there's something wrong with Twitter.
Yeah.
This isn't working. And then everybody was like, oh, we're doing Instagram now. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And that was, of course, the one that stuck around. But then Facebook bought it, and I was like, well, maybe that was a good move.
It's so hard. I mean, fucking Zuckerberg, man. Like, when you think about it, he really didn't. I mean, MySpace, MySpace was out clearly before Facebook, right? And he kind of just took all the shit and then did the same thing, but more people thought it was new and liked it.
Well, there was an exclusivity because it was it was college based.
Okay, yeah.
You needed
I
like
saw
a
the movie, but
.edu
yeah,
type
yeah.
thing. Yeah. It's just really weird for me that everybody's like jumping from platform to platform. And so if people want to find me on X, formerly known as Twitter,
Mhm.
I'm at Stout Ryan. I will post there, maybe. I'm on Instagram at Stout Cider because there's a lot of people named Ryan Stout, and I always had that I was always on top of it. I always had that web space.
Uh-huh.
And so RyanStout.com is mine.
That's
A
pretty
lot
good.
of people want it,
Yeah.
and they can't have it. Facebook /Ryan Stout. But it's hard to get it's hard to get that unique brand across all platforms.
Yeah.
If you're just a minute too late.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of like, I've seen social media change so much over the years where I'm like, don't care. I just don't care about social media.
I don't either. I'm not good at it. I try to put out clips of this and other things, and I don't know what I'm doing. I try my best, but
Yeah.
people that got on TikTok like right away, or I guess billionaires now. I don't know. How did that? What? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're in such a lazy industry where they don't care what you do on stage. They're like, how many followers do you
Yeah.
have? And you go, oh, I thought you were a talent agent. I didn't realize you were a popularity agent. I thought it was your job to take my talent and elevate me to a level where I would become popular.
Yeah.
No, that's not what you guys do at all. You just sit around answering phones all day for incoming calls. Okay, great. Good to know.
Yeah.
I can answer the phone. I know how to do that. Yeah, and that's the other thing too. Entertainment is changing so much where it's kind of like, I was exceptionally lucky that you would put my face on MTV hosting some show and people would stop and watch. Like we would get emails, like my team would get emails from MTV being like, your boys are rating machine. They put me on like after a celebrity had like an hour-long show and they were really excited about it. And they're like, and then we'll put Ryan's new show on after that. And then they would get the ratings back and people didn't watch the celebrities show. But then my ratings actually, they would get a bump. And they're like, well, we don't know how he did that. And I'm like, well, that seems like the job.
Yeah.
If this person's popular on social media and they can't get their crew to go watch the TV, maybe you stick with the guy that people stop and tune in on when they're flipping channels or whatever. And convincing network executives that I have that magic, they'd rather go, no, we'd like to bet on the numbers that we can see on social media.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. But
so, yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
if people are very interested, they should send me an email through my website, and I will add you to the email list. Tell me what city you're in, and I will. I'll let you know when I'm coming through. Because having that personal email list still, like
that's big.
That is
That's still
golden.
big. Yeah.
So if somebody trusts me with their email address, I promise not to abuse it.
Yeah. Well, it's all good, man. I appreciate you doing this again.
Absolutely.
Gonna let
Thank
you
you.
go. Ryan Stout, everybody. Thanks for joining us in the back of the room.